Talking with the experts.
In episode 344, Yewande Faloyin explains what burnout is and what you can do to overcome it.
I think it depends on how extreme the position is. So I would say that if I think back to when I burnt out, my biggest tip for myself would have been speak to someone and get some help. Because I couldn't see it. I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't see it, and I didn't feel like I had enough time. Like it was just like I just have to continue with stuff. And so actually maybe my first tip would be just stop. Like don't even try to solve the thing yet, but just stop and create space for yourself to just get a little bit of clarity and to get help, especially if you're kind of in that extreme position. Because I don't know, I may be selling myself short, but just reflecting back on where I was, because I was in burnout, I don't know that I had the headspace to support myself through that, which was then probably why I then ended up just quitting.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is all about business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Yewande Faloyin. Hopefully I've said that correctly. And we're going to be talking about how Yewande finally got out of the burnout cycle and how she helps her clients get out of it too. And Yewande is the founder and CEO of Untitled, which specializes in coaching entrepreneurial executives and serial high achievers to accelerate into more senior, more impactful leadership positions. As a certified leadership and performance coach with leadership experience in high-pressured environments, Yewande helps her clients develop the skills and mindsets critical for success, as well as the behaviors and actions that enable them to achieve consistent and sustainable peak performance. Before founding Otito, Yewande had leadership positions in McKinsey and Company and Morgan Stanley. Impressive resume. Thank you, Yewande, so much for being with me today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Rose. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be good.
How did you get into doing what you're doing, and why, and what does Otito, what does that mean?
Oh, I love that you asked that. You're actually the first one. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into it. So I often say that I separate my professional career into pre-burnout, and as in like the major burnout, and post-burnout. Although even pre the major burnout, there were still little bits of burnout. So prior to burnout, as you said, I worked in corporate. And my last corporate role was at McKinsey. I always describe it as the best 3 years of my corporate life that I would never do again, because I did end up with 2 burnouts in 18 months prior to leaving. And so I'm very much a head person, which some of your guests may resonate with. So whenever I've moved roles, it's always been like, all right, let me get out my spreadsheet. Let me figure out where my skill sets are, where it'll match, what the ideal companies are, what's the next trajectory. And I was so burnt out that I literally was like, I can't think, let alone act. And so I just stopped. I quit, which for anyone who knows me knows that that's like the strangest thing for me. I quit having no idea what I wanted to do, assuming that I would go back into corporate. But then my approach was at that point, the complete opposite of everything. It was, I'm going to find my ikigai. I'm going to just experience whatever felt right, including booking a yoga teacher training course. And then I discovered this thing called coaching. And I remember someone telling me about it, and I went, but that's not a real job. That's just what I do on the side for my clients. That's just the space I give my clients to work through the stuff that or my corporate clients at that time to work through their stuff. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. this is a thing that I could actually do. And then that was sort of the start of it. And to answer your second question, I can go into it a bit more, but Otito is a Yoruba word. So I'm Nigerian and British. And Otito is a Yoruba word that means the truth. And like authenticity, honesty, truth is like, they're just part of my core values. And so I decided to name my company that.
I love it. It's what a great way to name a business. I think it's, and to have the, truth, honesty, integrity, authenticity, all of those things in one word is amazing. And I love it. It's if people know what it means, then obviously they're going to want to work with you, because that's what people are looking for in a business, in a coach, in a a coaching business, I guess.
Yeah. And so much of what we do, I think for me as well, when I was going through that process of switching, I also got a coach for myself. And it was interesting because going from a very head oriented space of, okay, I just need to learn the skill sets. I just need to figure out what my strengths are. I just need to figure, and I'm not saying that's not important, because I got certified. Like, there's a lot that we do from a knowledge perspective, but there's often something a lot deeper in us, whether it's the mindset that's then driving our feelings, that's driving our actions, and also our intuition. So for me, truth is both kind of the external truth of, like, for me, authenticity, integrity, all of that is foundational, both for me and also for everyone that I partner with. I call my clients partners, not necessarily
Great.
clients,
Yeah, I love
because
that.
we are partners. But then also the truth of what we actually want, right? What we're going through, what's actually going on below the surface. That's how we get to our best selves and our best leaders in order to create the greatest impact.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, if you wouldn't mind sharing, how did you know that you were at the point of burnout, and then you went to burnout a second time? Poor you.
Yeah, I know. I didn't learn the first time.
No.
What's really interesting, excuse me, is in the moment, I don't know that I fully recognized it. And I'll tell you why. So again, McKinsey is an amazing company. What I got out of the 3 years, I mean, the acceleration of me as a leader was just immense. At the same time, you're surrounded by people who are, I mean, I loved my colleagues. They were great, driven, and everyone's kind of in that mode of just like, go, 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 go. And we're all supporting each other. So I think because of that, I didn't fully recognize it in the moment. And therefore, I remember saying to myself, well, if I'm still waking up and I'm not in hospital, like, like I'm okay,
Yeah,
which
fine.
obviously
Yeah,
not necessarily, I'm fine, right? I haven't fallen over. At the same time, when I then started kind of resting a little bit and coming out of it, and I remember making the decision to leave, I started reflecting back on what was actually happening for me. For me, and I know for different people, burnout's very different. Sometimes it manifests itself more in the physical side. For me, it was across all the dimensions. So, so I use the word spiritually, but in terms of like connection to what I was doing, I recognized that I was more distant, although I was still enjoying it. I didn't understand the why anymore. Physically, I mean, I'd hurt my shoulder, my wrist was burnt. I could barely type for 5 minutes without my wrist burning. I was sleeping maybe 5 hours a day. And even in that, not sleeping very well. So like work was still going through my mind. I wasn't resting. So my brain didn't have space just to rest. During weekends, I would literally remember myself just lying on a couch because I just didn't have the energy to do anything else. Emotionally, I was very snappy. I didn't know this until later. I remember my father saying to me, yeah, I was really worried about saying anything to you because you would just like snap back. And then just like mentally very cluttered. So looking back, I wasn't me, but I was still functioning. So I was like, oh yeah, I must be fine. But obviously not being fine.
You don't recognize burnout until someone else points it out to you.
No.
So what led to the second burnout then?
Not learning from the first. So what happened was I had a really intense project that led to the first burnout. I then went on an internal project. So I actually think there were probably like a long burnout, but it was sort of like a peak. And then I thought, okay, I've rested. I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to make sure that I'm exercising, I'm eating well. So I started to tick off all the boxes. But the fundamental, and this again, it's like OT saw the truth of what was happening was I was ticking off boxes of, okay, now I'm sleeping 6.5 hours, but my mind's not rested, right? I'm exercising, but my shoulder's still hurting and I'm like getting acupuncture to try to take the pain away. I'm eating, but then I'm eating like tiny little meals wherever I can find it. So I would say that it was a continuation of what I was still doing, because my mindset was still one of go, 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 go. I have to keep going because I have to serve my clients. I have to be there for my team. I have to be there for myself. And so a lot of the work that I did after was not just the action of stopping the burnout, because I think that was just the way my mind was working, was actually going deeper and figuring out what's the belief system that's causing me to think that that's the way to work.
Yeah, I can so empathize with everything that you've said. I know last year I was doing up to 5 interviews a day, podcast interviews, 5 days a week.
Wow.
And then I was, and then I do all the editing and everything. So it's about 2 to 2.5 hours each episode. So add that on top of, so there's another, 50 hours or something of work. So, I was working like ridiculous hours. I was going to bed 3 o'clock in the morning every single morning and have to be up, fairly early. So I gave up podcasting for about 2 months. I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be cheerful to my guests. I didn't have any interest in anything at all. And I just sit here in front of the computer and just scroll through Facebook. Just scroll, not doing anything in particular, just, and I was burnt out because, I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I like to have things, I try to not be, but sometimes it creeps in and I can't help it. So I can so understand where you were and why you got to that point. High achievers, like ourselves, feel like they have to keep achieving to not only get the work done, but feel valued, to ourselves. And I've worked out that as long as I'm happy in my head and in my heart, then I can, project happiness out there, and it doesn't matter. And as long as I rest, sufficiently, I'm actually sleeping quite well now. I had chronic pain for over 20 plus years, and I had 2 hip replacements done this year. And honestly, the best thing I ever did. I can't believe it. I just can't believe that my pain from not being burnt out anymore, and the pain of, having the hips replaced it's stopped the pain all over the place. So I can understand about pain and burnout. It's awful. It's and something that you don't recognize in yourself until someone points it out to you.
Exactly. I thanks for sharing that, because there was so much that you said where I also agree. I think there are definitely similarities, but one thing you said right at the end, which I think we don't always recognize, is you kind of talked about how the pain, like the physical pain, helped with other things. We often don't realize how connected everything is, right? So you said you were just scrolling through Facebook. So again, in my language, that would be like spiritually disconnected. So disconnected from self and from your purpose and your why. So it doesn't mean that you didn't still love doing the podcast, but you were just in a space where you kind of, it's almost like the doing overtook the reason why.
Yeah.
And so that, and then the pain, like we take for granted how much that connects. I've got a client at the moment who he's very physical. I mean, he's done like Ironman, like he's just constantly training for something. But then recently was in an accident and hurt himself. And so he's got to have a couple of operations. He cannot like walk like a mile, let alone do all the stuff that he was doing, at least
pain
for
is so debilitating.
It's so debilitating. And then it affects his work and it affects everything else.
Everything. I was sitting in this chair in pain. I was trying not to move because it doesn't matter how I moved, I was in pain, and I hated it. And it makes you tired, it makes you grumpy, and it makes you so hard to live with.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's understandable, right? So one of the things that I also find as high achievers is we then beat ourselves up about the fact that we're not our greatest selves. It's like, of course we're not, right? You're in pain. We're not superhuman. And so some of the work that I do, certainly on myself, but then also clients, is how do you truly give yourself that self-compassion? Not self-compassion in a pitiful way, like, oh, I can't do
No,
anything,
but
but
you,
like,
the
of course
rest,
it
you
makes
just
sense.
need that rest, don't you? You just need to
It
do things for
exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you need to rest.
mm,
You need to go and smell the roses. You need to go and put your feet on the grass, even if it's freezing cold. Just go and stand on the grass and ground yourself. And really, people think that it's woo-woo to do that, but honestly, it's no shoes on the grass, cold as it is feel that, you know, if it's a little bit squishy, it's so good between your toes. It just feels wonderful. And you know, people don't do it often enough. And I love getting outside with no shoes on. In fact, I would not wear shoes if I didn't have to.
me too. Me too. Like, I don't like, shoes are so restrictive. One of the great things, I don't know if you do you work from home?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things I love is the fact that I don't have to wear, wear shoes
Yeah.
when I'm
Yeah,
like
I'm wearing them.
commuting.
I wear slippers at the moment because I got a really bad case of chilblains in my toes. So I went and bought
I
myself a
get
pair of
chilblains as
slippers.
well.
Yeah, I got chilblains because I don't like wearing shoes, and it got quite cold.
Mm.
And yeah, so I had to buy a pair of slippers, and it got rid of my chilblains, thankfully. But yeah, if I had my choice, I wouldn't wear them.
Okay, I'll remember that. Yeah, I need to get probably good slippers as well.
Yeah, no, it helps. You got to keep your toes warm. Mm.
Very
I'm
important. Good.
sorry, we've got a bit off track now, but but I guess what are your tips for people who maybe don't, maybe they recognize that there's something not quite right about themselves, you know, they're not the same, they're not performing to that high level that they used to perform at, and there's something going on, but they're not sure how. What tip would you have for someone that is in that position?
Hmm. I would, so I think it depends on how extreme the position is. So I would say that if I think back to when I burnt out, my biggest tip for myself would have been speak to someone and get some help,
Mm.
because I couldn't see it. I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't see it, and I didn't feel like I had enough time. Like, it was just like I just have to continue with stuff. And so actually maybe my first tip would be just stop. Like, don't even try to solve the thing yet, but just stop and create space for yourself to just get a little bit of clarity and to get help, especially if you're kind of in that extreme position. Because I don't know, I may be selling myself short, but just reflecting back on where I was, because I mean, if I was in burnout, I don't know that I had the headspace to support myself through that, which was then probably why I then ended up just quitting because I didn't have the headspace. That was
Yeah.
kind of my stopping moment. If you're in a space where you see yourself going towards burnout, um, some of the tips that I give, again, it will depend on what's going on for the individual. Again, stop is always a good space. Um, but I always again go back to mindset and just first of all recognize what's going on for you. For some people, it's a bit more head. For people who are a bit more who feel more, it may be recognizing the feelings that are coming up for you, and don't judge yourself on it. So, as an example, if you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I just have to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to keep going," just pause and go, "Well, how true is it that I have to keep going? How does that benefit me? How does that benefit my clients? How does that benefit?" And just challenge your thought process a little bit and just stop it a little so that you can get that clarity to move forward. If it's more of a feeling, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, one of the most uncomfortable exercises I ever did, but also one of the most transformational, was I'm not much of a feeler. Now I am, but I wasn't then. And I had my coach at the time, say, whenever you feel something that's uncomfortable, stop and just write it down. Write down what you think might be triggering it, write down all the emotions around it. And sometimes when you just sit in it, you feel it more. And therefore you go, all right, that's not how I want to feel. How do I want to feel? I want to feel energized. I want to feel connected. So then you may go, how do I feel connected? And then it might be, oh, I remember Rose said, walking outside barefoot and like on the grass will help me feel connected. And just do that, right? But there has to be a break of the pattern. And so you have to create that space, recognize what's going on for you, accept it. So don't beat yourself up, and then go, I can choose to do something slightly different. So often I'll do that exercise with my clients, like awareness, acceptance, choice, over and over again, build that muscle.
Yeah, I think beating ourselves up is what we all do. It's an unfortunate trait of high achievers when we don't achieve the results that we think we need to achieve. And then we start to use negative self-talk and, that itty bitty shitty little devil on your shoulders telling you all the things that, you should have done, when in fact, you should be listening to the angel on the other side who's saying to you, you did the best you could with what you have, with what and the world's not going to fall apart because you didn't achieve what you thought you needed to do. You probably achieved more than according to your peers. So we have to stop doing it.
Yeah, what
That
you just
causes a
said
lot of
there.
burnout too. It's just being a high achiever in itself causes a lot of burnout because we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect.
Yeah, what you've just said there has just hit the nail on the head. I think so one of the things I talk about, and again, when I think about my transition, is there's sort of, I think we all recognize that kind of rest, or the things that help us rest, whether physically, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is kind of the way to get out of burnout. But there are different mindsets that drive that. And depending on which one, depends on how successful you'll be. So there's some people, and there are three that I've identified. There's some people who are in a space where rest is to cure burnout. I was definitely in that space during my two burnouts. Like I just need to rest, because if I don't, I won't be able to function. So I'm literally just doing the bare minimum to keep going. So that's just to cure. There's then the second, which is preventative, where people go, okay, I've been in burnout. I don't want to be in burnout anymore. I just have to rest because I don't want to get there. So that also comes from a place of like fear, which isn't great for our performance. The third, which is where I move my clients to, is recognizing that rest is, and I like to say, a legal performance enhancer. And when I started to switch to that mindset, it was like, oh my gosh, it's not a thing that prevents me from achieving. It's actually the thing that gets me to the next level of achieving in a way that I've never achieved before, right? So, but I think because people find it difficult to connect the two, it feels counterintuitive. But stopping and going outside and putting your feet in the grass, it may seem like oh gosh, I'm just taking time out and I've got 50 million things to do and I'm missing out on 5 minutes. But that 5 minutes is going to up your performance in a way that when you get back, your ability to create impact is going to be beyond anything that you could have done if you didn't go for the 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
So it's that switch to performance enhancer that helps high achievers especially move to a place of actually getting off the burnout cycle forever, not just for this moment.
Yeah, I try and have an
I'm if someone had told me, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, because you were breaking up, so I thought you'd finished. I'm sorry for talking.
No, go ahead, Rose. You were saying 1 hour.
I try and have an hour's nap in the afternoon, just after lunch, just so that I can, calm my brain and just relax my body and just not think about anything. And so that seems to help me. So if I have that rested just for the hour, I seem to be able to keep going in the afternoon, because we get that afternoon slump sometimes, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you just think, do I have to keep going? So if I have a rest before that, awkward time in the day, then I feel like I can sort of perform a lot better.
There you go, right? And so you've mastered your cycle for rest in order to improve your performance. For me, I definitely have like my lunch breaks. My mornings are critical. So I've got like a routine in the morning that just like gives me that boost. Even if I wake up kind of just on the wrong side of the bed or just not feeling right, I'll tweak the routine a little bit, but I do know that when I do it, I will start my day a lot more confident and focused and in my highest place of performance, rather than, oh gosh, I just need to start because if I can get that extra 2 hours, then I'll do 2 hours more work. No, well, maybe, but it's not as
How are you going to
effective
be,
on the work.
by lunchtime or the 3 o'clock slump, and really you're probably the 2 hours that you gained in the beginning of the day, you've probably lost by the end of the day because you're not performing as well. So you're not looking after yourself,
Exactly.
and
And
sometimes,
it's not as enjoyable.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely right. Yes. And because I seem to find I do my best work late at night. I don't know why, but I'm my most creative after 8 o'clock at night.
Interesting.
Go figure.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all different, right?
It's really
We're
weird. I don't
all
know.
different. But it's not weird, it's you.
Well, it's me.
But
Yeah, and
you recognizing that,
I'm weird. And I accept that.
which is great now, right? Because then now when you think about doing your creative work, you know when to do it. So sometimes and it's understandable, I'll sometimes get people who just go, okay, just tell me what to do. Like I hear that if you wake up at 5:30 in the morning, the most successful leaders wake up at 5:30, like Elon Musk. And then if I sleep at like, I don't know, 7 o'clock, and I'm just like, that works for Elon Musk. But if it doesn't work for you, let's not do that. Let's get you to master who you are so that you can be most effective.
Absolutely.
And that's
And
key.
then there's the spiritual side of things, gratitude, practicing gratitude every day.
Oh, yeah.
I've found has really helped. I wake up in the morning and I think, it's going to be a good day. But every night before I go to sleep, I always practice the things that I'm grateful, or, express the things I'm grateful for during the day. Even if it was a bad day, there's got to be something, at least one thing that you're grateful for, like, it's one extra day above ground. So, just be
It's
grateful for
true.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
practicing gratitude, people think that's a bit silly too, but I found that it's made my life a lot calmer, because I've recognized that there are things to be grateful for, even if it's been a bad day.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's funny, I go through phases where I do more or less gratitude conscious, but it's kind of just part of, as you said, the more you bring it into your day, it lifts your mood. And again, we don't fully recognize, back to what you said about, the connection, right? When you're physically not feeling right, it affects other things. Just like emotionally, if you feel more lifted and calmer and happier, you will naturally perform better. Like, fact. So if you can do
Absolutely.
things like gratitude, which help you more regularly feel calmer and happier, then you will perform better.
I
It seems so
don't
simple.
meditate, I don't journal, I don't meditate, I don't journal, but just that 5 minutes before going to sleep, just express what I'm grateful for the day and for the
Yeah.
future, because I always say I'm grateful for things that are going to happen in the future, because they haven't happened yet, but they will. I practice my intent that they will. So I'm into a bit of manifestation as well. So
I know. I was just about to say we're about to open up a whole can of worms with manifestation. 100%. We attract what we think. When I was younger, partly grew up in the US, and I was never good at baseball or like softball. But I remember the coach always saying, like, think about hitting the ball, not about missing it. And obviously I would think about missing it and I would miss it every
yeah,
single
I
time.
agree. Yeah, I used to do the same.
Right? But if you focus on it, fine, you may not hit it 100% of the time. You may not hit it the first time. But the odds are, if you imagine yourself hitting it and you focus on it, that's the direction that you get pulled into. And there may be different philosophies and spiritual thoughts as to why that is. It almost doesn't matter. But I think there is a consistent belief, especially for people who do practice manifestation and thinking about what you want, that it 100% gets you a lot closer to where you want to be.
Absolutely, it does. And I can say so much for the last couple of years. I've done so much work on myself, especially after last year when I had to give up the podcast for a couple of months. I worked extra hard on my mindset and just other things, just to have a happier life.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can tell just hearing you speak. And what's interesting hearing you talk about almost like the before and after with like the podcast break is I am getting that sense of calm, right? And I don't know about you or other guests that you've spoken to, but what I also find about high achievers, and I used to be this way, but less so now, is that if we're not working, if it feels too easy, it almost feels like are we doing enough? Right. So when I certainly when I went through this period, and when I coach people through a period, there's a period where they go, but it feels too easy. Like, am I not doing it? And I'm like, okay, let's focus on the results. Are you getting where you want? Yeah. But it feels easy. And I think people sometimes struggle with that effortlessness because it feels like it should be hard. But then I'm like, why does it have to be hard?
Yeah.
Why should it be hard?
We've been told, I think, when you go and do exercise, or, if it doesn't hurt, then you're not doing it properly, and
Yeah.
and I had a physio once that's told me, if it hurts, then you're doing too much. And I said, no, that's not right, is it? You're supposed to be able to feel. No, he said that's something that they used to teach you, but now they teach you that it's not supposed to hurt. You're supposed to just to the point of where you think it's going to hurt, and then you stop. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. So so that, that way that was a lot easier for me to get past the pain. Just try not to overexert myself, so that nothing hurt anymore, but even though it still did, but it's just sit here in a little thing.
It's such a good point, right? Or like what's good for you shouldn't taste good, right? It's like vegetables don't taste good, or it's like you have to feel pain for progress. It's like, why?
Yeah, why? But that's what we taught as kids.
It's what we're taught. Yeah,
it's what I come from probably 2 generations removed from you, but I was taught as a kid back in the 60s and 70s that if you're not pushing yourself, you're not doing it right. And you'll end up being nothing. And that's was ingrained in me by my father. It was just like, you've got to be an A student, and you've got to be an award winner all the time. You've got to get first in every endeavour. And I thought that's what I grew up with, and that stayed with me all my life. So and it's hard to work through.
Yeah, of course, right? And again, it comes full circle to what we were talking about before, which is accepting and self-empathy of course it makes sense that we act the way that we do, given the decades of, and I don't mean conditioning in a bad way, but the decades of how we've lived and the belief systems that have been there. And now you can always choose to understand how do those belief systems serve you or not, and choose to either continue to feel those or go, actually, that's not what I want anymore. I actually don't believe that. When I question it, I'm like, does that make any sense? Does it make sense that I should be in pain every time I go to the gym? No.
Absolutely not. No.
Right? Anyway. So I choose to believe, something different.
That's it. So burnout really, it is a mental condition, it's a physical condition, it's a spiritual condition even, because if you don't feel heart-centered at some point, I think you lose the will to keep going.
100%. 100%.
Yewande, where can people find you if they want to find Otito, or just more information about yourself?
Yeah, so it's funny, when I was younger, because my name is Yewande Faloyin, you go to school, and at least when I was in the US and the UK, and it's like, the teacher would always stumble, and so it's like embarrassing. Now it's great, because I'm literally the only Yewande Faloyin that I've seen on LinkedIn. So best place to find me, and I love getting messages and supporting people as they go through, is to go into LinkedIn and just search for my name, that's there, or otitoleadership.com. And I've got a bit of a freebie, which can we put the link in the show notes, which I can share a little bit? Is that all right?
If you want to send that to me, I'll put it in the chat, and
I'll send that to you.
Make sure that I have it for the show notes.
Fantastic. So it's a freebie that I do called How to Perform in Business Like an Elite Athlete. And so as you think of yourself as a business owner, it's performing as that elite athlete, but not from a place of like curing burnout or preventing burnout, but really, really using rest and what we've talked about, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical yourself, to as a legal performance enhancer. to perform better in business.
Perfect. All right. I look forward to receiving that link, and I will definitely put that in the show notes for you. Yewande, do
Fantastic.
you have something that you'd like to share with us? Some tip or hint or something?
Yeah. I think my biggest, I guess my main words of wisdom is your mindset, especially as a business owner, is the most powerful skill set that you can ever invest in. Like that's personally what I believe. And I say skill set because it is a skill set that can be learned, right? Just like marketing, just like sales, just like strategy. And so part of the reason why I always say it's your most powerful, it's yours forever. It's single common factor in everything that you do, success or not. You have 100% control over it. It's easily accessible because it's always with you. So my greatest words of wisdom is really investing in it as much as, if not even more so than the other things that you do for your business, because it is the one common denominator. And when you get to that place where you are performing like the leader that you want and even beyond and not burnt out, the sky's the limit for everything and anything that you want to do, no matter what's going on in the world, right? The world shifts, the world changes. We just came out of a pandemic, the whole world's turning all over the place. But you, if you can master who you are and master your mindset, I mean, nothing will stop you, irrespective of what's going on.
Absolutely. You'll be a tidal wave, won't you? Be a tsunami.
There you go.
Okay,
Exactly. Your own tsunami.
Yes.
Yes.
Yewande, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I would love to speak to you again another time.
I'd love that. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me, Rose.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.